Well, welcome back, folks. And now that we've got the initial mowing done at the beginning of the mowing season here, we will have some downtime with a little Ford 8N, and it'll allow me to take care of a few remaining items such as checking the head bolt torque and carburetor adjustments and some of the other things we discussed, and also to paint the seat and seat spring. And obviously that's what you see in front of you here in the video. This is not the original seat that came with the tractor when I bought it about 8 months or so ago now. Those of you who've been with me from the beginning may recall that the original seat, someone had added or used I think it was a Ford 2000, 3000, 4000 series seat. It was blue. It had a more upright back on it, and it was upholstered. Definitely was not an 8N or an N series tractor seat. So I found this one used. It was in pretty good shape. It did have some stress cracks in the pane here that I had welded up and then just shot a quick coat of primer just to protect the raw steel. And this is a flip-up seat, as some of you probably know. I do believe the spring here, or I'm pretty sure it's original to the tractor. This seat, the seat pan, and the seat spring were originally black from Ford. You do have to wonder about the thinking on Ford's part where they painted a metal pan seat that's used oftentimes in the heat of the summer that you sit on black. You do have to think about that a little bit and wonder how they came up with the color of black for a metal pan you sit on. But be that as it may, that's what we've got. So the plan here is to paint the seat and the seat spring black once again. In order to do that, there's a few things we need to prepare for, and one of them is adding this little clip on right here that is used to hold the seat on the seat spring. And let me reposition the camera and I'll give you a better shot of what I'm talking about. This is the close-up of the clip, and again, those of you that have been with me for a while may recall last fall or early winter, after I got the seat pan, I cut the original rivets, and they're just steel, standard steel rivets. They're not pop rivets, they were steel rivets, and they're bucked from the back side. I cut the original rivets off so that I could remove this because that spider cracking that needed to be welded emanated from these two holes, and this had cracks. The entire surface was significantly cracked, so I had to re-weld it. So consequently, this had to be removed. So I'm going to put this back in place right there. It's going to be riveted, and we'll talk about that later. We're not going to talk about that as part of this particular segment here. But in order to prepare for the paint, I want to get this riveted back in place so that I can move on with priming it and painting it with this clip already in place. Now, let me reposition the camera again. I'll show you the intent or the purpose of the clip. With the clip riveted approximately in this position right here, as the seat gets closed, this will move like this, and somewhere in this vicinity here will clip over the seat spring and just act as a retainer to prevent the seat pan from vibrating and being loose. That's the sole purpose of it. So my next step here is to media blast this clip, because I'm going to prime the back side. I'll probably prime the whole thing actually, but in particular the back side here where we have raw steel. I want to get that primed with an etching primer and clean up the surface up here. Also, even though this was primed once before, I'm going to scuff it because it's been handled and there might be a little grease and oil. In fact, there's a little oil stain. You might not be able to see it in the video. There's a little oil stain here. Clean this up a little bit and prime it so that I will rivet this back in place, and then I can do a complete prime of the whole assembly. I'll take it apart and I'll prime these pieces separately. This retainer clip was originally riveted, of course, to the bottom of the seat pan with a rivet that looked very much like this. This is virtually identical to the original style that was used. About a handful of these. I think these are vintage, actually.
It's a solid steel rivet, which requires a special tool to attach it. This is not a pop rivet. And after finding the rivets, the appropriate rivets, I had to come up with a means of attaching them. So I ended up making this rivet tool right here. This is just an air hammer, by the way, that you can buy inexpensively almost anywhere. But I ended up making this hammer tool, which fits in the rivet head like that. I don't know if you can see that or not. What I did is I started with a set of inexpensive air hammer tools. As you can see here, this is originally 4-piece set. And the pointed tool, that's this one that's in the air hammer right now, originally had this tip on it, like that. And what I did is I heated this up very, very hot with a MAP gas torch, red hot, and I kept it red hot for a couple of minutes so that this whole thing was good and hot, because I wanted to remove the hardness from the steel. These are hardened, obviously, for their original intended usage. So I needed to break that hardness down, so I did that by heating and then quenching in cold water. Then I put the piece in the vise and just cut it off with my angle grinder. So I ended up with a flat piece here. Actually, you can see what it looked like right there when I cut it off. Then in order to create this concave or dish effect that would fit the head of the rivet like that, I took a cutoff wheel and a Dremel tool, because this radius here looked to be pretty close to what I needed or wanted for this tool here. So I used my Dremel and a cutoff wheel, and I just started cutting like this. You can see that. Didn't take very long. Frankly, it only took a minute or two to start shaping this out, create this dish effect. And then I finished it with a grinding stone, also in a Dremel, just to shape it up a little bit and finish creating the concave surface so that would nest nicely with the rivets. Then what I did, once I had the tool made, I wanted to do a little testing because I'd never really done this way before. I made this little sample piece up with 2 holes in it, 3/16 through holes. That's what the shank of these rivets are. And drilled 2 holes, took a piece of aluminum to emulate the thickness of the seat pan, and then a little piece of strap steel to emulate this bracket. And I riveted them together. My first rivet attempt was this one, and you can see it marred it up a little bit. I bucked it on the back with this steel drop I had in my scrap box from my machining work I've done over the years. This is just a cut off of what they call a drop. And I literally just held it against the rivet. So imagine, if you will, the rivet went through, and well, it'll be more of this size here. I cut this 1-inch rivet off to size. I think it's 5/16 is the shank size, and I bucked it on the back with this, like that. Applied the tool to the face side here and pulled the trigger. And it literally took 2 seconds. And the first one, right here, like I said a minute ago, wasn't perfect. It did work. But what I discovered is you don't redo it. I wasn't satisfied with it, so I hit it again, and you can see where my tool jumped and marred the surface. So the second one, which is this one right here, I did it in one fell swoop. I held the tool again. This was in a vise. Put this in a vise. I held the tool against like that, and the bucking bar on the opposite side. So you'll have to envision, if you will, the bucking bar like this, the tool like this, and I hit it for just a couple of seconds, and the second one came out Very, very nice. I'm very happy with that. So my intention is to emulate that technique using this on the seat pan with these two rivets that are already cut to length. And that's 5/16 if I recall. And using what I learned with this little test, this little experiment. The tool worked fine. The backer, the bucking bar, worked just fine. I held it something like that, and it worked. So I'm happy with the way that all turned out. So now we need to move over to the seat and this bracket and do our best to emulate this the second rivet right here. And again, the secret is do it quick and clean and be done with it. Now you can buy dedicated rivet tools, and in fact there are many people on YouTube say don't use an air hammer. I already had the air hammer, so I wasn't going to go out and buy a dedicated rivet tool for 2 rivets. That would be silly. So I had to figure out a way to make this work, and I'm quite pleased so far with the way it worked out on this test piece. Of course, the challenge is to be able to duplicate that on the seat pan. So that's what we'll do next.
Well, it's actually the next day, and I'm going to go ahead and see if I can't get this clip here riveted onto the bottom of the seat pan. And you can see a little bit of the setup here. Obviously this is the clip. I have both the rivets pushed through from the face side or the inside, the seat side. I put this vice grip on here just to pull that second rivet through so I can hold this clip tight up against the pan. And then here you can see the bucking bar, which I will hold up in here against each of the rivets when I rivet them. Here you can see my setup from the opposite side. I made this little support jig. I have to have a means of holding this this pan in an almost vertical position. I could get someone to help me. I could even get my wife out here. I'm sure she'd be happy to do it. But I just made this little fixture up, a little support from some lumber I had laying around. Took all of about 5 minutes, but I think that'll work. That'll work okay. You can see the rivet right here, the head of the rivet's right here. This is the first one I'm going to attempt to set, again using this as the bucking bar on the back side. And then on the face side, and I'll try to keep my head out of the shot here, I'm going to hold the tool against the head of the rivet, bucket on the back side, and pull the trigger. That's the intent here. So we're going to go ahead and give this a try. So there's the finished rivets. They're nice and flush and tight to the seat pan. And on the back side, if you can see that, it's nice and tight, the clip, and so it's not going anywhere. Of course, this will all be re-primed and sprayed, including the clip. That's why the order of operations here is important. It's a lot like machining. I want to make sure that the metal underneath the clip here in the seat pan was primed. And once I put this together, obviously I can't prime underneath it, so that's why I did it the way I did. I'm not concerned about this primer. I'm concerned about the inside surfaces that I can't now any longer get to. So this will all be re-primed eventually. But the clip is tight, and I'm quite pleased with the way my MacGyver tool worked out for this application. So the next steps will be to strip this completely and remove the old finish, the old rust. I'll use The blast cabinet, I don't know if I'll be able to use evaporust. I don't know if I got a container big enough to hold this, but at least it'll be media blasted, cleaned thoroughly, and wiped down, and then it'll be primed and painted. And it might be a week or two before I can do that because the humidity is very high, way too high to paint. And I'm going to have to wait for a little bit better weather conditions to be able to do that. I'm not going to strip this until just before I paint it because I want to leave what little paint is left on here for now is just to protect the finish, including in here. So that'll it'll be stripped and painted essentially all at one time. So that's going to be it for this video today, folks. Any issues, questions, thoughts, drop me a note. Otherwise, as usual, thanks for watching.